Hello, and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo. And we have a good guest for you, but just before I introduce her, I want to say hello to everyone who was at the Smarter Artist Summit and said hello to me. I really appreciated it, and it was cool to know that we have at least we're up to 9 listeners easily. So, because 8 or 10 of them were there. Wait. So we must have 10 listeners if there were 10 there. Let me do the math here. But anyway, on that note, we'll try to keep things informative and useful for everyone who's listening. And we have a great guest today, Elle Casey. She's a former attorney and teacher. She's a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author who now lives in southern France with her husband, 3 kids, and a number of furry friends, which we've just learned includes a pregnant horse. And she's written in several books in several genres and publishes an average of 1 full-length novel per month. And she's done a sci-fi series in the last year, so that's why we're having her on the show. And also, I know she started with fantasy, so I guess I should let you talk. Hi, Elle. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to self-publishing?
Well, I was working as a teacher of legal English in France while my family took a 1-year adventure trip. We kind of checked out for a year and came over here. And then I had no idea about writing books. I figured I would maybe do it when I retired, because the idea of having to submit to agents and getting a mass of rejections and probably never going anywhere with it was just completely unappealing to me. But then I read an article about Darcy Chan. I don't know if you remember her. She was one of the first people that was making the news as an independent publisher. And that was the first time I actually learned about ebooks, because I still was into paperback, so I didn't really understand what e-readers were doing. This was, I don't know, when was this, 2011? And then I did a little research and I read about Amanda Hocking, and she was having a lot of success in a genre that I happened to be reading at the time, which was that was when Twilight was kind of out. So I decided, well, what the heck, I'll write the book that's been floating around in my head for 20 years, and what's the worst that could happen? I could waste a little bit of my weekend time, and if I sell it to somebody who's not related to me and likes it, then maybe I'll write another one. So that's what got me started. And so I released my first book in January of 2012 on the 1st, which makes it really easy for me to remember how many years I've been writing. And the first month, I think I sold 50 books, and probably 25 of them were to my mother, who felt bad that I kept checking my numbers and wasn't seeing anything. But then I had some strangers buy the book and leave nice reviews, and that was all the motivation that I needed to start writing. And my first book was an action adventure, and then my second, third, and fourth, and fifth were fantasy, urban fantasy. And after that, I wrote a 4-book series of dystopian post-apocalyptic fiction. And I just I was obsessed. So I was writing, one book I wrote in 3 weeks. Most of the other books I wrote in 4 weeks. And then I got involved in the online community, and that's really what started making me focus on it as a business. When I realized that I was making more money writing books than I was as a teacher, which frankly is not hard to do. Anybody who's taught knows that the pay isn't so great. But that's what started my journey, and then there were a lot of people online who were very helpful to me and kind of steered me in different directions, and I guess that's how it all started.
So you started right out writing books in 3 and 4 weeks. There was no improving over time or getting better?
No, it actually got worse. I mean, it's this year, the longer you do it, the more books you have, the more work there that goes into the promotion and the organizing of the front and back matter, and of dealing with, just responding to fan mail and stuff like that. So I hired a full-time assistant last summer, which has been a boon for my career, really. It's so great. And she's the one who contacted you guys on my behalf. She's really wonderful. So she helps me keep track of all the stuff that isn't writing and talking to fans. So that has helped me, but there's just so much to the business outside of writing that I have to pay attention to. I have less time to write now, but and I'm also a lazy person at heart, so if I can get out of writing and do something like ride a horse, I will do that. So I tend to wait until the last minute and then kind of do everything in a big stressful rush. But that's just, I'm 47 now, and I've kind of come to terms with that's who I am. I'm one of those people who just waits to the last minute to do stuff. I work better under pressure. But the last, I would say, year has been more difficult for me to keep up that pace because I also signed a few contracts with Montlake Romance, one of Amazon's imprints, and I have some contractual obligations that interfere in my self-publishing schedule, and sometimes I've had to put my self-pub stuff off to the side to complete a task under my contract, and then, once you break up the flow of writing in a particular world, you have to go back, or I have to go back and reread the entire series to get back in the world. So that has caused quite a bit of delay in my schedule.
Yeah, I can totally sympathize with all that. As someone who's, I don't know, I think I'm up to 30 novels and some novellas and short stories, and it's hard just doing the admin stuff sometimes. I envy you. You're a person. I'm gonna have to try to find one, and it's the whole training somebody that I'm like, that would take for a long time. I could just do it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it did take us a long time, but she lives close to me, so she would come over and work for a few hours in an afternoon, and then a few days later we'd find another few hours. But we did a 90-day training period, and she took copious notes of every single thing we did so that she wouldn't have to ask me a second time how to do something, which was very helpful. She's just a very diligent person. I think it would be really difficult to find somebody of her caliber very easily. It would just be difficult. Of course, they're out there, but they're not a dime a dozen.
Yes, that's great that you found someone. So could you kind of tell us, you've been in a bunch of different genres, genre hopping as they call it. Is there any particular reason you chose to do that rather than like really focusing on one and building your name in that one genre?
Well, it definitely has made it harder to brand myself, but I read in all the genres that I write in. I mean, I've been a bookworm since I was in preschool. I started reading when I was 4. So, I mean, I even read cereal boxes and shampoo bottles. So I wanted to write in the genres I enjoyed reading. And also I have, I guess, somewhat of a short attention span. So once I write a bunch of books in one genre, then my mind starts to wander, and the ideas that come to me are in different genres. So I say, okay, I need to take a break from that genre and try something different. I think it just keeps it fresh. When you have a schedule where you're writing a book every single month, it can get stale very quickly. So it's just fun to spread my wings in a different direction.
All right, cool. Well, we'll probably talk more, or we will talk more about the marketing later on, since that's why a lot of people listen. But I'm just curious if you found that some genres are easier to do well in than others. Are there any that you've struggled with, or any that have been easy, relatively speaking?
Well, that's a good question. And if you had asked me the question a couple years ago, I would probably answer you differently than I do today because, as you know, the industry changes so quickly. And when, for example, Amazon flips out a program like KU, boom, surprise, everything that worked before stops working. And you have to do a quantum shift in thinking of how you're going to market yourself and what you're going to do next to just kind of keep up with the market. So I would say that romance was the easiest genre for me to get noticed in by a broad group of people. I shouldn't say broad, I should say large group of people, because the romance market is probably one of the largest markets out there. Maybe it's even with thriller, I'm not sure. But anyway, when I wrote my first romance in 2013, I think it was just at the beginning of the new adult, maybe a year into the new adult craze. And so I was riding a wave that was really cresting. So it was really good timing on my part and a really good niche of the genre. But I didn't have this master plan. I didn't see that rise or that crest happening. I just decided to write romance at the time. It was a good timing. So that's when I had my New York Times bestseller and all that stuff. And then that created I have a newsletter sign up in my book, so that really grew my mailing list quite big. But then, of course, after writing several romances, I needed to get out of romance, so I would go back to my roots of fantasy or something else. And I've found now that with KU, the majority of the people who are in KU are romance readers, I think. And so the KU really impacted my romance sales and my ability to promote my romance titles, because the KU algorithms give such a boost to people in KU and a slap down to people not in KU. So essentially I got slapped down. And so I found that, I was looking at the market and I really love science fiction. I would say I've watched more science fiction than I've read science fiction. I'm, like a big Firefly fan and stuff like that. So I thought, all right, I want to dip my toes in these waters and check it out. And I'm just going to do it my way. I'm probably going to, not follow the trope exactly like I should, but it's something that I was excited about, and I had a character. And I would say that for science fiction and fantasy, although it's a smaller group of people, they're really passionate about the literature, about the genre. So with romance, there's like 5 million people, and I'm only going to get a tiny percentage of those people. But with science fiction or fantasy, I can get a big chunk of a smaller group of people just because they talk about the books they like, they share the books they like, and they will, if they like one of your things, they'll go find them all. So I would say now for me, I'm really excited about the opportunity in science fiction especially, because I think the science fiction fans are not big KU people, which is great because the only KU titles I have are the ones I'm required by contract to have because I don't like the program. So I think science fiction for me is like the next frontier. And so I just joined an anthology recently with a short story, Beyond the Stars, A Planet Too Far. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it just hit #1 in science fiction and fantasy on Amazon. So, yeah. Did I answer the question? I'm really bad with tangent.
That's all right. I don't remember what it was, but you probably answered it. It's good to hear from somebody that's doing well and is not in KU, because we've had a string of guests recently that are like, yep, I'm doing awesome, I'm in KU. And it is discouraging if you want to be wide and, you don't want to, it's kind of a wrestle. You want the money, but you don't want to be beholden just to Amazon.
Well, I think it's a good short-term idea and a tool to use, especially if you're a new author, so that you can get your name known and get it near the top of the list. But I think it's a really bad long-term solution. Really bad. I think it's bad for everybody. And it undervalues books, and it creates this attitude in people's minds that books should be free or close to free. I just think it devalues the work. So anyway, I could get on my podium and pontificate on that all day long, but we don't want to hear that.
All right. Well, let me hand you to the guys. They have some questions about productivity and such too, and then we'll swing back to marketing later, if that's all right.
That's great. Sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to start with the productivity. We've talked a lot on the show about the value of being prolific, and in case people missed it, we talked about it a bit already. You average a novel a month, like 3 to 4 weeks for a novel. And
yes.
I want to talk a bit about that. We'll start off with, how long are your novels on average?
About 85,000 words.
All right, so we're not talking about, these are full-length novels. They're not like you're doing NaNoWriMo every month.
No, I have had some like 110, 120,000, and I think my science fiction Drifters Alliance series, which is 3 books long, I was like, I really want to write a shorter, sharper book, like just a tighter book, but I just can't seem to do it. I'm very wordy, I guess. I'm like, my books are those books where I walk you through every step the character takes. So, an entire 85,000 book is 3 days worth of a character's life. So that's just how I started writing and how I carried through with it. But I really tried hard to write a shorter, tighter book for the science fiction fans, which I think are more tolerant of that type of writing. And so my Drifters Alliance books are in the 65, 75,000 range. But I have a hard time. I set the goal at 85 on my Scrivener. You can put use the tool to say what your goal is and gives you the daily count you're supposed to get to. And I usually go over 85, but I try not to go too far over it.
Yeah, people who follow my Twitter will notice a sort of a running gag at this point. The story I'm writing had an original length of 75,000 words, and I've been slowly ticking that up as I pass it, and now it's up to 125,000 words. So hopefully it doesn't go much too higher. Uh, so I understand.
That
I
happens.
understand being wordy. How do you motivate yourself to this level of output? For example, do you have like daily word minimums?
Well, the answer to that question has changed over time. In the beginning, the only motivation I needed was good reviews and money. Right. When I saw the money coming in, when I see the sales going ching, ching, you refresh your button and you see more sales. That's all I needed. I was like high on book writing life. But then it became more like work, and there was so much admin that then it became like, okay, Elle, you have 85,000 words and you got 20 days left, and that means you got to do this many words a day. So sit your butt down in front of the computer and don't get up until you write the words. So then that worked.
Are we frozen? Am I frozen?
I can hear you. I think we
Oh,
might have lost her, so we'll give her a chance.
all right. Maybe the pregnant horse kicked over the Wi-Fi in the hotel. Elle is coming to us kind of from the road, it sounded like this week, in a bed and
Yeah.
breakfast kind of thing in France. So we were expecting some possible internet lag and such.
I can't even begin to imagine writing a novel a month. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's
Okay, here we
impressive.
go.
There you are.
All
I'm
right,
back.
we hear you now.
Welcome
Okay.
back.
Sorry,
Uh,
I lost my signal just dropped off completely, and I kept talking, so I don't know where I left you.
you were at the part where it started to be work, and you sort of had to sit down and make sure you got the words written.
Yeah, and then I got to the point where I would look at my word count that was due over the next week, and I'd say, okay, if I don't write today, how much will that increase my word count tomorrow and the next day? And am I capable of doing that? Oh, heck yeah, I've done that many times before. And then the next day will come, and I'll say, if I don't do it today. So it's gotten really bad, but what's really helped me is using Dragon. So I'm doing a ton of dictation now, which makes, I can write 20,000 words in a day in just a few hours. So I've written 20,000 words in a day before, but then I have to put my wrists on ice because my tendons just get like exhausted from that blah, blah, blah. So the dictation, though, that's changed my writing life.
We've had other people on the show talk about very high word counts. We had someone who used dictation to help him get to 5,000 words an hour, he had said. So I genuinely wish that I could do the same. I have tried on multiple occasions, but dictation is just not as fast for me as typing. The words don't flow that way.
Well, I tried to 2 other times before, and it was horrible. And I was like, well, this sucks. I don't know how anybody does this. Someday when my wrists completely crap out on me, I'll figure it out. But then somebody joined me up to a Dragon Dictating group on Facebook. And normally when someone joins me in a group without talking to me first, I'm like, get the heck out of here. Don't join me to groups without asking me. But I saw some interesting comments on there, and I thought, well, I'll check it out. And then people were kind of giving their tips like how to make it easier. And I thought, all right, this is worth trying. I'm going to give it one more try. And everyone said, give it 2 weeks and do it every day, and it'll get easier. And I did realize that story writing is a different skill than storytelling. And so in the beginning, it's very awkward and ugly and awful, and you look at it and you think, oh my God, I'm going to throw my career in the toilet if I keep doing this. Your brain starts to figure it out, and it's really, really interesting if you're into how your brain is wired and how it communicates with itself and improves itself. Once you start getting good at it, a very weird thing happens, because I tell all the grammar as I'm talking. So I'll say, begin quote. I was telling him this story, ... end quote. He looked at me funny. Next line. So I'll do all the grammar. What happens is when people are talking to me or I'm listening to a radio broadcast or an audiobook, my brain is going, why aren't they speaking the grammar? I'm waiting to hear end quote, next line, comma. So your brain adapts, but you just have to give it time to learn the skill. Anyway, I'm preaching again, but has changed my writing life. I mean, I can write so many words now in a very short period of time, and I can do it while I'm walking around the neighborhood.
No, that's what we're looking for. When you dictate this stuff, do you end up having to go over the manuscript afterward to sort of make it legible, or is it reasonably finished when you're done dictating? Because of the skill you've developed with the notation and whatnot.
Well, I would say that because I haven't spent a lot of time retraining my dragon, which you can do these little training sessions where you give it your dictation and it'll show you what it has transcribed, and you say, no, that was wrong, it's supposed to be this. It learns. So I only did that one time. So when my dictation comes out, I would say it's about 80%, 85% accurate. And then I will go in there just like I would do if I wrote it, typing, and I tweak it. I add some body language, I add some emotion, or I think, oh, that sentence sounded awkward, So it's the same kind of editing, but a little bit more of the grammar. And there are some issues that I still haven't fixed, like it will hear the word him and it will type them. And sometimes when I'm editing my own work, I don't see the difference between him and them because my brain knows what it's supposed to be. So there's more editing for my editor or for my proofreader. There's more work for them because of the dragon. But the time I save and the productivity is worth it.
Excellent. And yeah, so it basically gives you a rough draft, the same thing that would have produced if you had just been writing it. That's
Yeah.
good to know. How much planning do you do before you start writing a book? Do you have the whole story in mind, or do you sort of let it flow a little bit?
Well, what I generally have is a main character or a set of main characters. Depends, if it's a romance, I got a guy and a girl. If it's science fiction, for example, I had one kick-ass character, and then I kind of developed a crew around her. And I have the central conflict, like what is it, what do I want to have happen by the end of the book? And then I'll sit there and try to come up with a little bit of a summary. It's about the length of a blurb on the back of the book description. But then I just put them in a scene and I start writing, and I just let the characters take over. So every time I've tried to outline, it's a kind of a waste of time because it never ends up going the way the outline is. But sometimes just to kind of prompt the creative process, I will try writing some one-liner outlines just to see if it just sends me in a direction. But generally, I kind of see the scenes as a movie playing in my head and the characters like real people, so I just kind of take dictation. This is what it feels like to me, is I'm taking dictation of the movie that I see and hear.
It's very similar for me as well, and I think that might be also why the two of us have difficulty keeping things short, because the story just sort of weaves itself and doesn't necessarily adhere to a pacing necessarily.
Exactly. Yeah, and what's nice about that style of writing is that I get in a lot of reviews, comments from readers saying that they had no idea the book was going to go that way, and I'm like, yeah, neither did I. Like
Exactly.
the characters just brought it there.
We talked a little bit about this before. This is my last question before I hand you off. But you prefer to write in a single genre until you've reached the point where you want to move on, or do you alternate or overlap with other genres while you're writing?
Well, I try to stay in one genre and one series at a time because I have so many characters now. I get so lost and I forget stuff. I mean, my brain is like a hunk of Swiss cheese with holes that stuff falls out of all the time. So I try to, but with this contract that I have with Montlake, sometimes I'll be in the middle of writing my science fiction and I'll get an email saying, remember, you're supposed to have this proof back to us by Wednesday. Here's the copy. And I'm like, I got to drop the science fiction, pick up the romance, and then it just kind of screws my whole schedule up because I got to go back, and sometimes I have to go back and read the whole book. As I was getting to the end of the book, I was almost done, and I got to go back and read it from the very beginning again just to finish it. So my preference is to stay in a series until the series is complete and then move on from there.
Definitely sounds like a sound plan, particularly if you want to have really good consistency.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's my last question for this part. So time for Jeff.
Alrighty. Actually, you just touched a little bit on essentially my second question I have for you. I'll ask that first. You say you typically release a novel each month. My question was, do you have a schedule you follow that dictates which series gets a new book, or is it based on which series is selling the best? Sounds like your contract might have something to do with that as well. I'm just wondering if you had that many books, that many series. Do you have a game plan that you follow?
Well, I try to have a game plan, but like all good plans, they tend to, I don't know, end up being dictated by outside forces. With the Montlake Publishing in my contract, it says that I can't release 30 days on either side of a Montlake release. So we call that a blackout period. Noelle, my assistant, and I call that our blackout period. So we're looking around at what fans are asking for. That's a huge dictator of what I'm going to publish next, whether I'm going to add to an existing series or if I'm going to start a new series because I just have a hankering to do something different. And then I do my publishing schedule for the full year, but then as the year starts rolling out and these little blips come up, some things get completely abandoned and other things get added on. And sometimes I just don't have as much time as I thought I was going to, so I just have to drop some projects and say maybe next year I can fit them in. So I do have a game plan, but it is fluid. Is that possible? Are those two things mutually exclusive? Possibly.
Okay, you mentioned before you can, typically you write a novel in up to, like, say, 4 weeks time. How much longer after you finish is a book ready to be actually released?
Well, I usually do the writing in about 3 weeks, and then the editing is the last week. So it's done start to finish in a month.
Fairly impressive. Damn, I wish I could do that. I'm not there yet. But all right, you published a number of books, all with distinctive, eye-catching covers, and I've seen a lot of them there. They look really, really nice. When I was looking through your covers, it was very easy to see which book belongs to which series. How important is series branding to you?
Well, it's become more and more important to me as the years have gone on. In the beginning, I was, like anybody, just kind of thinking I knew what I was doing and trying things out. And I slowly realized that, covers are probably the most important thing you can put on the book. More important than the title, more important than the blurb, more important than the sample, because like you walk through the grocery store and people pay for product placement for products that are going to be at your eye level, right? And then people make all the boxes bright colored, if it's a kid's.
We just lost her.
That darn horse sure is persnickety there, kicking that router.
We'll give her a little bit, see if she comes back on there. But I can't even begin to imagine starting at, let's say, 85,000 word on average, writing it in flat out 3 weeks time, and then all the editing, everything, essentially ready to release in a week after that. So literally a full-length novel a month. I was figuring there was going to be at least, she writes it in 4 weeks, maybe a couple of weeks for like polishing, editing, formatting, that sort of thing. But nope, she was right. 1 month for each book. I'm just thinking, you've seen those commercials with that jet thing there, the brain just go. Mine just did that. I'm like, I cannot even begin to imagine that. You probably can.
See,
but
I feel like she's like my sister because that's kind of about how I am too. And it's going to be, if it gets well over 100,000 words, then it might obviously take longer. But yeah, I try to do like 5 to 10K a day when I'm doing a rough draft, and then it usually only takes about a week to edit it. But then I send it off to beta readers and start something else too. All right, she's back.
Sorry. I don't know what's happening to the connection, but we just completely dropped off there. My apologies.
No worries. The final question I have for you regarding this is, what are some common mistakes you've seen with other authors who have switched genres and or writing styles?
Common mistakes. Well, I think there's a mistake with spreading yourself too thin with the pen names. So I have some author friends that have, 5, 6, 7 different pen names because they have a theory that readers are more apt to pick up a debut novel from an unknown author. It gives them a chance to hook readers who maybe rejected them for a book they didn't like so much in the past. But the problem with that theory in my mind is then you've got to duplicate your online presence. You got to have 5 Facebook pages, 5 websites, 5 yada, 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 5 different brands almost, because if you clutter up your brand with a very similar looking brand, it just makes you kind of invisible. So I'm lazy. I decided after trying a couple different pen names, forget it. Too much work. Put it all under one name, make the covers really clear, make the book descriptions really clear. And maybe if somebody accidentally picks up my romance and they meant to pick up a science fiction, well, I'm sorry, but maybe you should read the book description before you buy the book. So that was my theory on it. And I know I got cut off before, but I just want to say that no one should ever be afraid to change their cover. If the cover's not working, if you're getting good reviews and people like the work, but you're not getting the sales, it's probably your cover. So I've changed covers several times, and I've noticed a huge difference. Like my fantasy series, War of the Fae, which is 8 books long now, started out with these covers that had like forest scenes on them because most of the scenes take place in the forest. But it just got a very small group of people interested in it. But when I changed it and put a face on the cover and a funkier font, I mean, my sales just completely, I don't know, they're like 500% better. So don't be afraid to change covers even more than once. Find the one that attracts people's attention to give you a chance. Because if you got strong writing, you got nothing to lose.
Couldn't hurt. Just keep tweaking until you find the right formula and leave it alone. So, sounds good. All right, let me hand you over to Lindsay. She's got some marketing questions for you.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, and I'm in the process of finally getting new covers for my beginning series that I launched back in 2010, 2011. So I'm excited about that. But I totally
that is cool to see. You'll be able to look at the numbers before and after and say, yeah, that was a great decision.
Yeah, I totally agree with your quote, though. I mean, the covers mean so much. People want to say, oh, don't judge a book by the cover, and everyone totally judges the book by the cover.
In every case, like even with people, like you see a person and you make a judgment based on how they look, and it's not right or fair, but like we're programmed that way. So, and trends change, obviously, and they're changing so fast now because we got indies like pushing the lines, pushing the margins all the time. So a book cover that was really working in 2011 probably is not going to be working in 2016. So sometimes it's good just to refresh every few years so that your stuff stays relevant to what readers are looking for, like literally looking for the visual image.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that leads me into my question here on trends. You've got a lot of books out, and I guess you've been at this now for four and a half, whatever month this is, 4 years, 3 months. So you've seen trends kind of come and go. What do you feel is working right now for you in 2016?
Well, trends as far as covers or genres or promotions.
Just marketing in general. Have you been playing with Facebook ads and all that stuff, or what are you doing right now that's doing pretty well?
Well, let me talk about that stuff. I'm so glad you asked me that question. There's this big trend for people to, spend $3,000 on your Facebook ads and give people a free book, and then when they sign up, give them another free book and another free book. And my assistant Noelle is always saying, we should do this. Like everybody's doing this, and they're reporting all this money they're making, and it's, they're getting great results, and they've got this class you can buy into, and I'm always wary about giving away books. Now I give away books. I've given away hundreds of thousands of books, so it's not that concept I have a problem with. I have a problem with anything that gives the readers the impression that a book is not worth what it's worth to me. So I am okay with giving away first book in a series free as part of a promotion. So we do a BookBub ad every month. When you have a catalog as big as mine and you've done as many genres as I have, BookBub allows you to do an ad every month if they like the book, obviously. Because, they restrict you to every 6 months, and they don't want to see your name in romance over and over and over again. Give everybody a chance. But I can switch in genres, so I have really good exposure with BookBub. I have not in the last year paid any money to Facebook for ads because, number one, I don't know how to do it, and I haven't had the time to figure it out. In honesty, that's why I haven't done that, because I used to do them when it was super easy, just like boost post, and you could get a lot of activity from boosting a post. But now it's much more complicated, and you have to be very specific with your targeted audiences, and you can't scrub other people's pages to get user IDs. So anyway, I haven't learned the new system. And number two, a lot of these people who are doing these campaigns where they were just trying to build their list and giving away free books are now getting a huge backlash from readers saying, could you please send me these other books for free? And then when the author responds with, well, I have to pay my bills, I have to get paid, the person responds with, well, I'll just wait till you put them on free, or I'll just go buy somebody else's book. So I think there's a danger in giving away a lot of free books and enticing people with this free book, that free book, that free book, of creating this image that your stuff isn't worth buying. So Yes, I'm into Facebook ads, but I'm into ads where you give like first book in series free and then encourage people to buy the rest of the books. I don't like it just Facebook ads to grow your mailing list, because the people I want on my mailing list are people who I know want to buy my books. I don't want people on my mailing list who want to get my books for free. So I do BookBub ads, and I market to my mailing list, which I don't segment my mailing list. So whether they signed up as a romance reader, sci-fi reader, fantasy reader, they're all in there together. But generally, when my newsletter goes out, it's got a little something for everybody in it. So I've got a promotion going for romance. I've got a new release in science fiction. I've got a friend who's releasing a fantasy book, so I'll put my friend's book in there. So I try to keep the newsletter relevant to anybody who signed up for my list.
All right. Well, I totally get your thoughts on Facebook. I haven't done the free book thing yet because I'm lazy or, busy, I mean. But I have played a little bit with just the ads, and I can break even selling a box set at like $4.99 and get people into my series that way, like my box set, book 1, 2, 3. And I've found that at launch it can be useful to spend some money to like try to get more sales if you're trying to stick on Amazon. But other than that, it seems like throwing away money. And like you said, it's, I know people are having success really building these huge mailing lists, but then I talk to them and they're not making any more money or selling any more books than I have, even though they've got 20,000 people on their list. I'm like, well, I don't know if all those people are buying the books. So, it's probably worth trying, but maybe might not be the end all for everyone.
Well, sometimes when you watch these, these so-called experts on Facebook ad stuff, they give you this advice, and not all their advice is correct. And so I think, like, first of all, you got to check your source. And by checking your source, I don't mean do they make nice Facebook ads. I mean, go look at their books, go look at their reviews, go look at their sales, because you can tell what their sales are by what their ranking is. And if somebody's selling you this thing saying, pay me this much money, I'll teach you how to do Facebook ads, and their books are down, 500,000, 600,000, they're really not making any money. So I don't know that person really knows what they're talking about. And for example, one thing they say is scrub your list regularly. MailChimp or whatever these service you're using will show you this person's super engaged, 5 stars. This person never opens your email, dump them. And that's completely incorrect, because if you send out an email to all your group and say, go to the 1-star people and say, I've noticed you haven't opened my newsletter emails in a while. Do you still want to be on my list? I send that out. I've sent 2 of those out in the last 3 years, and I get a flood of emails back saying, I open your newsletter every time. Please don't remove me from the list. But if you look at their stats, MailChimp says they've never opened one of my newsletters. So I looked in, MailChimp's frequently asked questions, and it says there they embed this tiny little graphic, and if a person does not load the images, the graphic doesn't load and then doesn't record it as an open. So this person who's a so-called expert is telling you, go in there and scrub off all those 1-star people. You are losing loyal fans doing that. So, I'm not the first to adopt anything. I'm very cautious about my brand, cautious about changing my systems because they're working. It's when something's not working, or when I see something is really working for someone else who I trust, I'll take a look at it. But then I think, how is this going to affect me? How is it going to affect my readers, my relationship with my readers? How's it going to affect my schedule? How's it going to affect the workload for my assistant? Like, all these things take me a while to muddle through. So I'm not the first to adopt anything, but I am the first person to say, no, that's not going to work for me.
Right, and that's a great point. I did not know that's how they were seeing, getting their stats. And, if that's true, then anybody who's checking their email on their mobile phone is not going to show up, because usually they don't load the images unless you tell it to load the images.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, that's what it was. It was, people are like, maybe it's because I look at it on my phone. So.
All right. Well, I'm curious. It sounds like you send one, maybe, is it like, do you do one email a month, or when you have something new out to your list?
Yeah, I do 1 email a month, because I generally have a new release every month. But even if I don't have a new release, sometimes I'll send out a message to, I'll go into one of my Facebook groups, my author groups, and say, anybody out there have a new release you want me to talk about, because I got room on my newsletter, or something like that.
All right. And do you because it sounds like me, like you, I have a pen name too, so I always have something new out, and or I'm trying to push the audiobook sales or something, so I'll do like 4 different things that I have available. Do you then just have one list, it sounds like, for all of your books and genres and everything, and do you have any trouble with that, or do you just kind of say like, here's for the romance people, here's for the fantasy people? What are you doing there?
Yeah, I just have one. I have one giant list. A giant. Okay, He's not 20,000 people. I think I have 11,000 or 12,000 people on the list right now. So it's we have been refining our newsletter skills over the last year, Noelle and I, and now our last couple of newsletters have been much sharper because she is saying, for our romance fans, blah blah blah, for our sci-fi fans. So really calling it out clearly in bold, header 1 font, so somebody can scroll past the stuff that they're not interested in. And we try to do something to encourage people to read the whole newsletter, even if they're just scanning past the things they're not interested in. So we started giving away $25 gift card to your favorite retailer, like Amazon iBooks or Kobo. Like we don't want to play favorites with any one retailer because we're getting nice merchandising attention from all the retailers. So we try to play fair, and we say, pick your favorite retailer. We'll give you $25 if you answer the clue in the newsletter. So they got to find the question, and then they got to go over to the Facebook page and post their answer. And it's always something to do with one of my books. So one time it'll be a romance book question, one time it'll be a sci-fi book question, one time it'll be a fantasy book question. So unless you read through the whole newsletter, you won't know whether that $25 question applies to you as a romance reader or sci-fi reader or whatever. So I don't know, maybe it's a little gimmicky, but we're trying to get people engaged.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea. And then all those people are coming to your Facebook and commenting on the post or posting or whatever. So more things that can be seen and shared by other Facebook readers.
Yes, and anytime you get a post on Facebook that just gets a lot of engagement, then of course Facebook allows more of your fans to see your next posts. So, I mean, if you ever want to see genius Facebook maneuvering, go to Esta's book blog page. She's a romance book blogger, and she gets the most engagement of anybody on Facebook I've ever seen. And she just keeps it about books, and she gets people to respond. And so, and she has, I don't know, 80,000 followers, and a huge chunk of them get to see her post because she gets so much engagement. So now, we're getting a little smarter about our Facebook usage. We're not just talking about my books. We're posting memes that appeal to bookworms. Because those are the people who are going to bother to go to your Facebook page in the first place. Really, they're the hardcore bookworms. So that's who we're posting for now, and we're getting a lot more engagement. So a lot more of our fans are actually seeing our posts now.
Yeah, great tips there. It's usually the off-topic stuff that I post. Like I think posted a picture of a dragon cake once. It was like seen by thousands and thousands of people because everyone was like, "I want one."
Yes, exactly. I mean, for me, I never know what's going to hit. Sometimes I'll put something up there and I'll be like, oh man, this is just going to get people. They're going to love this. And 2 people will say something, and that's it. My most popular post in the last 6 months has been this little meme that has different colored buttons. And it was like, which button would you push? And so for the green button, you could heal anyone. With the red button, you could fly. With the blue button, just a superpower. Pick your superpower, basically. I mean, hundreds of people responded to that.
Nice. Now, for other people out there that are listening and kind of want to do the cross-genre or genre hopping and try other stuff too, have you had any luck with getting people to cross over? Like if they're romance readers, getting them to try your sci-fi? And do you have any tips for that? If you've had some luck?
I have. In the beginning, I didn't have a lot of hope that it would happen, but there are some people like me, because I'm one of those readers who want to read in different genres. I get bored with something, or something catches my eye, or a friend tells me, hey, you should check this book out, and I'll check it out. So I knew they existed out there. But I know they're kind of a small segment. So I went into it with not a lot of expectations, but I would say as the years have gone on, I've seen more and more crossover. And if you look in my reviews, you'll see readers saying, this is not my regular genre, but because it was Elle Casey, I decided to give it a shot, and now I want to read more of it. So if you build your brand to the point where people feel like they can depend on your writing, then they're going to be willing to take a chance. You know, if you're consistent, if you write characters they consistently like. I mean, my books are known for their humor. So if you pick up pretty much any one of my books, most readers will say you're going to end up laughing out loud. And that happens no matter what genre it's in. And so somebody who really likes that type of story development will say, all right, maybe I can read something that's laugh out loud funny in a space opera thing, even though space is not my thing. So I've had more and more luck with it as the years have gone on.
That's encouraging to hear. I know I've heard from other people that they say, nope, they're not going to cross over. It's just not going to happen. So.
Well, it happened for me, so I don't know that it will happen for everyone, but it absolutely can happen.
All right, so speaking about your science fiction, when you branched into that last year, did you have any challenges with marketing, or, you know, it's pretty different from what you were doing before, so how was that?
Well, that was really hard for me, and it's still hard for me because I don't have a lot of science fiction fans on my Facebook page, so there's not a lot of engagement when I post that type of thing. So I guess I would say I'm still really a neophyte in how to promote to that fan base. So really, it's people found me through a BookBub ad, so I got a few new readers, and I've had a couple of friends put my new release in their newsletter, which certainly helped connect me up. So cross promotion, I think. And really, my whole time writing, cross-promotion has been very huge for me. So making friends with other authors in your genre and sharing the good news. Now, I'm not going to be a big jerk here, I hope, when I say that I don't share just everybody's stuff. If anybody comes to me and says, share my book, which happens often, I don't say yes unless I take a look at their work, read their sample, and think that it's something that my readers are going to like. Because to me, if I put somebody in my newsletter or I post about them on my Facebook, I'm endorsing their work. Even if I say, I haven't read this, but it looks great, I want to think that when readers pick it up, they're actually going to like it. So cross-promotion has been really big, but I'm still like a fledgling author in science fiction. Still relatively unknown in that genre, but it takes time, and I need to add more books to the catalog. I only have 3 right now, and unfortunately, I guess I'm known for cliffhangers, and even when I try to not cliffhang, I cliffhang anyway, so I need to finish off that series so everybody can tuck themselves into bed at night and feel warm and cuddly about the ending, because right now they just want to beat me over the head with something because I kind of left it hanging. So I need more books in my catalog before I really feel like I can put a huge effort into promoting, because to me that's important. If you're really going to work hard at promoting something, you got to be in the process of fulfilling a promise, and I've put a pause on that promise. So I got more books planned for the series this year.
All right, that's good. Yeah, I've definitely noticed with my adventures in different genres that it's like you gotta commit to doing a series, especially if you just put one out there, you know, maybe some of your diehard people will check it out, but you know, once you have like 3 or more, then you can start playing with the book bubs and the discounting the first one and that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, and you'll see readers say, how many books are there? Are there going to be more? Well, I'll wait till you finish. I'll wait till you finish this series. And as a reader, I'm that way too, because I hate when it's going to be a 4-book series and I get to book 3 and I know it's going to be a year before the last book is out. And I forget, you know, I move on to another author and another series, and I just forget to read that 4th book, and I never get closure. No, is that a chick thing? I don't know. I need closure. So having a nice series all finished, fat and juicy waiting for me as a reader, I love that. So I think it's important to get a series finished before you move on. Now, have I always done that? No, but that's best case scenario.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I tend to lose a little interest in it too if I leave something for a long time and write like 2 other projects in between. So.
Well, I'm in the process of writing books 9 and 10 in my War of the Faith, my fantasy series. And these books are so hard to write because the first 4 books I wrote were my books 2, 3, 4, and 5 of my career. And I was living in a different place in my life. I was years younger. Had different motivations. And you know, characters have voices, but you can detect echoes of your own life in their lives and in their voices. And as your life changes, their voices just shift the tiniest bit. Now, luckily, my character had a lot of growing up to do in the series. So even though she's coming in sounding more mature, it fits for her arc. But it is very difficult to write these last 2 books, more difficult than any of the other books, not only because I have such a history that I have to remember all these characters and tie up all the loose ends, but also because I have changed as a writer and as a person since I started writing this series, and I'm trying to stay true to the original thoughts, emotions that come through in the writing, and that it's quite difficult.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I have a series that I started with that I still get people like, "Are you gonna write more? Are you gonna write more?" I'm like, I'd have to go reread all 9 books that I wrote in order to even have a chance of getting back into those characters' heads again.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
really hard. It's hard mentally.
Yeah, last question for me. You mentioned earlier that you're in a new sci-fi anthology, is it? A multi-author anthology with Nick Webb and some other kind of big sellers in the genre, and we're actually going to have Nick on a show coming up here soon, so mark your
Cool.
calendars, listeners. It's fair. I think it's a fairly recent release, isn't it? Are you able to tell yet if it's
Yes.
having a boost on or giving your series a boost?
This is going to sound probably obnoxious to say this, but I am not the right person to ask about that. I do not look at my sales at all. If I want to know what's going on with my stuff, I ask my husband. So my Elle Casey is a 3-person team. It's my husband who does all the numbers and the financial stuff, and Noelle who does all the administrative stuff, and I just deal with writing and fans. So I probably should have found that out before I came online with you. And maybe if I send you the information, you can add it, after on a note or something. But I have to believe that it is, because when I read the reviews of the arcs that were distributed, everybody is, many people are noting certain things they liked about the book and saying, I'm going to have to go check out her other work. So that happened when I did Dark Beyond the Stars, which was the first anthology by the same publisher. So I assume it's going to happen again this time.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, it seems like a good way to get noticed. And I've noticed with those anthologies that you can actually get them picked up by BookBub, whereas like the big multi-author box set of novels, they usually won't take those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
No, it's been great. It's just great to be able to have conversations with other sci-fi authors about what they're doing, and like we discuss what do you think are some good promotional ideas for this. So it's a real education for me, and it's nice to be part of a group of like-minded people and have somebody to talk to about this stuff.
Absolutely. And so for anybody listening, if you are trying to figure out some promo ideas, putting together an anthology might not be a bad idea right now.
Yeah, it's just a ton of work. I mean, Patrice Fitzgerald, who put together this one, I know I can't even imagine how many hours she's put into it. It's when you're trying to herd a bunch of authors who are supposed to meet deadline and they all have other projects going on, it's like, like they say, herding cats. I mean, I could sense her frustration when she's like, I've got almost all the manuscripts, you have to stay positive and happy even when everybody's making you want to pull your hair out. So it's not an easy task, but it's certainly worth doing.
Yeah, and sometimes if you're the new author, you have to be the organizer because nobody's going to just come up and ask you. But then you can get some good sellers in there because everybody wants to keep promoting their stuff. So.
Yes. Yes.
All right, let me pass you back to Joe for some questions.
Okay. Yeah, we actually most of the questions I've got have been answered at this point. One of them was about how much time you spend on marketing and versus writing, but it sounds like while that's been escalating, the fact that you've got an assistant helps you out with that.
Yes, and we had this little fantasy that she would get us all caught up, and then we would just be kind of sitting there on cruise control, and we both realized that it's like laundry. It just never ends. The minute you get something done, there's another pile of stuff for you to do. So we just... And then, of course, she's always trying to improve things. So she creates work for herself. I have work for her. She creates work for herself. And yeah, but I would say before she came on board that my writing was really suffering because I had to do the promotion. And then the promotion suffered when I would focus on the writing. So at some point you reach critical mass. It's really dependent on the number of titles you have.
Hmm. Another question I had was when you're contemplating a new genre, is it primarily a taste decision or primarily a marketing decision for you?
When I switched to romance, that was mostly marketing, and but I've been a romance reader since I was a kid. when I probably shouldn't have been reading romances, I was reading them. So I liked the genre to read, and I thought for marketing purposes it was absolutely something I needed to do. And then science fiction kind of was the same. I needed a change, and I was looking around going, okay, who is surviving KU? That is what I was looking at. I was like, who is going to like, it's the KU apocalypse. Who are the survivors going to be? And to me, it was science fiction. And I'm a survivor, if nothing else. So I said, then I need to get into this genre because I love to watch it. I love to read it, even though I haven't read a lot of it. I mean, I read Dune. I don't even know how old I was. Really too young to understand many of the concepts in it. But, like, I need to write in this genre because I'm going to survive this horrible book subscription program somehow. So that was marketing, and also a genre I enjoy as a reader, as a viewer.
Well, it's good
But
to know
other
that.
things like paranormal romance or like thriller, these things were just an idea that popped into my brain, and I said, yeah, that'll be fun to do. Had nothing to do with marketing. In fact, you can see they're not my best sellers. The ones that were not based on marketing decisions have not been my best sellers. Now I get great reviews on them, but for making money, those were not the best ideas.
It's good to know that there's still room for sort of inspiration and things that you're excited about in your sales model, even if you have to balance them with marketing decisions.
Yeah, it's a mix. It's a nice mix. It keeps my overly busy brain occupied enough that it doesn't wander off.
Which is a valuable thing to have. And I guess my last question is, now that you've been in quite a few genres, genres tend to attract different types of fans, and therefore one would imagine that you sort of have to market different genres differently. Have you found that you had to adapt your methods from series to series as you moved along?
Actually, they do attract different groups of people, but what's super fun is I have a street team, like a private group on Facebook, and people from all walks of life, both men and women, kids and adults, grandparents are in there, and they are interacting and having a great time. And they're talking about what they love about Elle Casey books, and it's the same no matter what the genre is. So I find that if I just stay true to myself and my style of writing, and my advertising carries that same personality throughout, it doesn't matter. I don't have to change it. I just have to be me.
That's definitely, I hadn't thought about that, but that's definitely, you are the attitude of your books, and therefore you attract a certain attitude of person, so presumably you can sort of branch that across no matter what you write.
Yeah, it's really, at this point, I think most readers are buying Elle Casey. They're not saying, oh, I'm only buying this book when it does this and it's laid out this way. They're like, I like the way her characters act. I like how the pacing. I like how the scenes unfold. So I'm just that person.
Excellent. Well, that's it for my marketing questions. So just hand you off to Jeff for the last few.
Okay, and I'm going to, you're going to watch me move around the room as I get my plug because I just got a low battery warning.
Oh, cool.
Just what we needed, right? First she cuts out entirely and then her battery dies. Jeez. Yeah, but I'm still listening. Go ahead.
Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will possibly go wrong. Yeah, I that's most of my bread and butter there. I've got computer tech calls galore that do that, but okay. So
well, when I sat down, I was like, I got plenty of battery, no problem. Yes.
But okay,
I'm back.
Social networking, you've touched on a little bit. You've obviously you do the Facebooking thing there. Are you typically pro or con for social networking?
I'm absolutely pro. I don't know how I would have built the rapport that I have with fans and getting the word spread without it.
And of those, which outlets do you prefer the most? I mean, it sounds like Facebook is up there on there at the top.
Facebook is where everybody is. Like, it's where all the users are that read my books. Let me put it that way. If you're writing to a fan group that is mostly men, I'm not sure that Facebook is your place to be, but like I've got a lot of kids and I've got a lot of women, and then I have a smattering of really techie guys. Those people are on Facebook. But if you're writing thrillers for, like, I don't know, middle-aged dudes, I don't know if Facebook is the place for you to be. But I mean, I guess you got to find where your readers are hanging out and go hang out there with them.
Alrighty, and obviously you feel it's important to keep in contact with your readers. Did I lose you?
I'm sorry, your last
Okay.
question just really broke up.
All right, let me try that. Is it important for you to keep in contact with your readers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at a lot of my reviews, you'll see readers saying that what they really like about my characters is they feel like they know them personally. And I think that's just part of my personality is I feel very connected to my readers. As a person, as a reader, before there was such thing as the internet, I always wished I could meet the author that wrote the book that I was reading because I was so fascinated with how they could come up with the idea and what kind of person they were and just thought they were magical. And so coming to it from that perspective as a reader, I wanted to be the author who would respond to that reader. So I wanted to be available for anybody who felt the way I did about authors. If you want to talk to me, I want to talk to you. If you want to talk about my books and my characters, let's talk about them. If you just want to talk about your writing dreams, let's talk about that. I just wanted to be that person who was available that I always dreamed maybe a writer would be for me someday.
Well, that's a really good way to look at it. Good deal. Let's see here. In your opinion, what should more indie authors be doing that you find that they're not? For example, starting a mailing list, building their brands via social networking, and so on.
I think it would depend on which indie writers you're talking about because there are some like I think everybody kind of knows at this point you should have a mailing list because I hear that talked about like a hot tip by everybody. So I think that's good. I think people are getting smarter about their covers. I don't see nearly as many homemade awful covers as I used to see. So I think people are getting smarter about that. Here's what I wish more indie authors would do. I wish they would not feel so fearful about being outside of KU. That's if we could just get all the authors to get strong and say, no, I don't have to be in KU to be a success. I write great books that people are going to want to buy, and I'm going to put them on other retailers and make them available to readers who prefer to read on a different type of device or whatever, or on a different platform. I wish more people would do that because KU would collapse without the cooperation of all these indies. But that's pie in the sky dream. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, neither do I. Neither do I. With regards to all the books you've published, what would you say has been the one mistake that you've made that you wish you could go back and rectify?
Ooh. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we only need one. Not if there's multiple. Yeah, just there's the top one.
So many things that I learned and changed along the way. I guess I wish I had been more sophisticated about branding, because about halfway through my writer life, I made a much more concerted effort to brand myself a consistent image, consistent color scheme, consistent font usage, so that people could identify me regardless of what genre I was in, and they would get the flavor and mood of my writing just by looking at the colors or just looking at how the font is placed on the book. My stuff was such a hodgepodge for so long, and I think I lost a lot of opportunities with that.
Interesting. Yeah, it's just like I say, like I mentioned before, I was looking at your covers there, and it is very easy to see which book belonged to which series. And when you have multiple series like that, I think that's very important to have the readers go, okay, well, I'm not sure where this falls in this series, but I know it belongs to that series. So it's really smart. But all right, let me hand you back over to Lindsay. I think she'll try and wrap things up for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, we better let you go so you can go check on your horse out there. We were joking every time you left that he was probably, or she was probably cranky and kicked over the router or something.
No, they're probably sleeping right now. It's pitch black outside, but no, I really enjoyed our interview. I really appreciate you guys have great questions, and I hope your listeners get some good information out of it.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, we've had a lot of great information. I was thinking I should be writing this down because there have been some good things that I would have quoted, but maybe Kate will be listening and she can catch a couple. That's our lady who volunteered to do the show notes and everything for us. But just last one question for those who are going to do the genre hopping and, feel like the same way they want to write in a bunch of different genres. Do you have any tips for them starting out, or maybe they're just getting into their next genre, or just any tips you haven't imparted yet?
I guess just be really, really clear in your book description what the genre is, so that people are clear about what they're buying. Because that's the only time I see like a bad review on some authors who are doing genre hopping is, I bought this expecting this and I ended up with this, and they get angry, blaming the author for their failure to carefully read the blurb. So sometimes I put, this is a YA urban fantasy series of blah, blah, blah number of books, and then I go into it from there. So I guess if you're going to genre hop, number one, be very, very clear about what genre you're in, both in the blurb and the cover image, because what works for romance does not work for sci-fi. And if you're kind of focused in one genre and you think you're just going to know what to do in the next genre, that's not true. Every genre reader has its own expectations, and they can be very, very different. So be very clear about what the reader expectations are so that you can meet those expectations. And also avoid that mistake I made of genre hopping and not being mindful of your worldwide or overall brand. Because if you write in romance and sci-fi and thriller and paranormal, your book covers can still be identifiable as a single author product, as long as you have some scheme going on, placement of the font or colors or something. There's a way to tie it all in together. And I still haven't perfected that. You can look at my books and see that there are still some stragglers, but that's what I would say.
Awesome advice, and that's probably good for everybody to make it really clear what kind of book they're getting, because people amazingly will buy books where they didn't read the blurb very carefully. Like I've seen this has steamy sex in it review. This book had steamy sex in it. What the heck?
Yeah. See, they saw that cover, and it compelled them to buy the book so strongly they didn't even bother looking at what they were buying. And that's another argument for having a really awesome cover. Like you can snag people and basically trick them into loving your book, like giving your book a chance just because you spent so much time picking the perfect image. I shouldn't say trick. That's not fair. You're going to write a great book and they're going to get their money's worth. But yeah, that cover image is it's the most important thing, I think.
Yep.
For promotion.
Good.
The most important thing is to have an awesome book.
Yes,
but for promotional purposes, the most important thing is the cover.
I've been guilty of that, especially in sci-fi. Like that book's 99 cents and has an awesome spaceship on it. That's geek porn, right? We're like, whoa, look at that spaceship.
Exactly. But if you put a spaceshipy or spacey looking thing on a romance novel, your romance readers are going to run the other direction. You're like, what the heck is that? That's one of those alien sex books. Not interested.
That's its own niche, which actually does really well for those readers.
I was going to say it's very popular with a big group of people, so maybe that wouldn't be such a bad idea.
All right. Before leaving, can you tell people where to find you? And is there any particular book? Do you have a free one or anything, or Lost Leader that they could check out, or what are you working on now?
You can find everything you need about me on ellecasey.com. There's links to purchase my books on all the retailers where they're available. The Look Inside feature is a link there, so you can read a sample of any of my books. And you'll find links to my Facebook and so on. I have 2 freebie books. There's 3 free right now. First in series for War of the Fae, which is an urban fantasy series. Be mindful of the fact that there is a teen main character who swears a lot. So if you don't like cuss words in your books, don't read that series. There's a free book of my dystopian apocalypsis series. Book 1 is free. That's a 4-book series. And then just this week, we're doing my first book I ever wrote is called Wrecked, which is a YA action-adventure novel. That book is free just this week. And that's awesome. A 2-book series.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on and answering our questions. It was a lot of great information, so I really hope people enjoy it and get something out of it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much for having me on. This has been great.
It's nice to meet you, Elle.
You too, Jeffrey.
So long.
Bye-bye, everyone.